Welcome to another episode of Screw the Clout. It's our Thanksgiving edition, and we have another amazing guest. I have so many interesting things to go over with her today. Before we get into that, though, I want to just thank everybody and all listeners for making us the number 9 podcast right now on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. So, without having amazing guests like this, you would just listen to me talk and it would be pretty boring and we'd probably crumble down the ranking. So with that being said, we have from The Bachelorette and The Bachelor, which I can't wait to get into on how this whole thing happens and how the whole process is. And we're excited. Let's hear from Michelle Young. Michelle, how you doing?
Hello. Wow, number 9. That's impressive.
It's pretty good, right? I mean,
That's
pretty.
great.
Yeah, I mean, considering the billions of podcasts out there, number 9 is a pretty good number. But we could be 8 higher. But listen, you got to crawl before you walk, they say. So so it's pretty good. How you doing?
Absolutely. I'm doing very well. I'm gearing up for Thanksgiving. Can't believe that it's already here. But
Where are you? Are you hosting? Are you going somewhere? What's going on for Thanksgiving?
in the future, I will definitely be down to host, but it's always at my parents' house. My dad is a phenomenal cook. And so I don't think anyone will really take over like the cooking hosting gig.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for a while, just because nobody can really do it like he can. So I'll head over to my family's house in Minnesota and we'll just eat until we can't eat anymore.
Listen, I always say it's the 3 F's: food, family, football. And that's the best holiday you could possibly have, right? So for me, anyway.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
It's not about buying gifts, nonsense, whatever, commercial. It's just let's eat, fun, and do our thing. So I want to get to so many different things because, as somebody who's in the film industry, but not so much unscripted, The Bachelor is a huge show, no doubt, as is The Bachelorette. And I do want to say, before we get into this, at one point in time, I actually went on camera for The Bachelor. But I thought it was like, I was actually with somebody, but I thought it was like, it's a gig. I didn't know you really had to be like, they really look into your background. So you're a school teacher. You're from Minnesota, right? So how does the whole thing come up where The Bachelor happens? We'll start with The Bachelor. So how does that whole process even begin?
Well, it is pretty funny that I still have no idea. A lot of people get on the show from like nominations. I don't know who nominated me. Somebody nominated me, threw my name into the pot, and I kind of just thought it was a bunch of like spam emails that I was getting. Kind of like either someone playing a joke on me or like this cannot actually be real. This is not how it's done. And they just kept knocking on that door. Like you said, I was a teacher. And when you're a teacher, I think that this is something that stereotype that needs to be broken, but you really do sometimes feel like you're put in this box where you can't have any other experiences. Like your kids literally think that you live, especially elementary school. They think you live at the school.
Right.
They see you at the grocery store and they're shocked that you're doing anything besides teaching. And
they think you live in the classroom.
Right. And the society kind of puts you in that box too. And so there's no way that I was going to do it. There's no way I was going to do it. Kind of kept pushing it off. And then I ended up hopping on a phone call and just taking the phone call, realizing that it was actually like this real opportunity where they really wanted me to come on the show. COVID was hitting. And so I started to think about it a little bit more and think about, I'm a risk taker, but think about, the consequences that might come from it, how I might be impacted, how my family would be impacted. And was it worth the risk? How much control do you really have about how you're showcased? And so there's so many different things, but eventually I ended up taking that risk. But it was some nomination that got me in, got my name into the pot, but I never had social media or anything like that. So I don't really know how I ended up on the show besides that.
And it's funny because I always say it's always when, I don't want to say don't give a shit because that's the wrong terminology, but like when you're just like, if you're like, oh my God, I got to be on the show, I'm a fan, it would never happen. The fact that you just were nominated, you're like, I don't know, that it always happens that way. Always does. It's
Always happens.
crazy. Always happens that way. So you decide to move forward, right? Um, you get to this. I don't want to say the set. I guess it's a set, right? It's a set. Um, what is that like? What were your preconceived notions about it to what it really was? What was your biggest preconceived thing?
Kind of like you said, that you always think it's going to be one way and it's never that way. I tried to walk in and have a very clear head of, let me not set my expectations super high so
Mm-hmm.
that I go in and you have no control. I have no idea about what it's going to look like, how it's going to go down. But what I can tell you I never expected was walking into this situation. We were in a bubble for COVID. And so it's not like you go in and you
Right,
get to be a part of,
right,
you're at the bachelor mansion and you have all these
right.
experiences. We were in a bubble, so we had to quarantine for 7 days before we even had any interaction in person with any type of producer or like the handlers, the people coming to your room. So 7 days in a hotel room. Throughout, like at one point, you have to hand in like all of your technology. So you're stuck in this box. The food,
Right.
not great. Let's just say
Oh,
that.
okay.
Um,
Okay.
and you have a lot of time to think. And so that 7 days after that time was finished, we then were able to go like take our pictures, kind of go do these little interviews, things for social media.
Mm.
And I was told that, night one was going to be on this night. I was dressed, ready in my dress. A lot of people don't know this. And somebody knocks on my door, and it was producer came in, and they're like, "Our bachelor is really overwhelmed right now, and we're going to hold off some people and have them enter at a later time."
Wait. Hold on.
So,
What is, first of all, it's a, you're a dude, right? You're going to meet what, like 20, what is it, like 25, 25 girls?
yeah, 20, well,
So,
25 to 30.
okay. So I'm a dude, right? Uh, I'm ready to have 30 girls come and, try to get with me and or impress me. And he's overwhelmed. I mean, that, I mean,
I think.
where do I trade places? You know what I mean? Like,
I
what?
think it is. I guess it is a lot when having been a lead. It's understandable because you are pulled in so many different directions, and it does all come really fast. You're not allowed to talk to your family during that time, so it's kind of like you're like ripped away from everything that you know, and you're in this really big environment. And if you're
Right.
there to actually find a person and that's really important to you, the weight of that. So I can understand being overwhelmed. Plus, I know that he hadn't been on the show before, didn't kind of know how things worked, so there was a lot going on, right?
Now,
I
how,
was
wait, I'm sorry. Just want to jump in. I'm
Yeah,
sorry to cut you off. I'm so sorry. But because now you got me thinking, there's so many questions
yeah.
within the question. So, how many girls, and maybe if you can't say, you can just say, I can't say, but how many girls out of the 30 would you say were there to really find love or to get their, exposure because they wanted to be seen and particularly, maybe hopefully get discovered? What would you say the percentage? If any, you could say no. Everybody was there to find love. What would you say?
I honestly can't even put a percentage to it. I know that you'd really love for me to. People would love for me to. I think
Right.
that's kind of for kind of up to everybody's like viewers' discretion. I think it
Hmm.
was fairly obvious. Some of the people who were there, some
Hmm.
of the people who maybe entered and weren't sure how it was going to go, and then got caught up in a lot of the other drama
The
and
hoop
got
war. Right.
portrayed a different way. So I think it just like there's a lot of people who do go on the show for, disingenuous reasons.
Hmm.
But I would say for the most part, you do like to think that people are going there to find their
For the
person
right reason.
or believe in love at some extent, right?
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
yeah, so it's a lot. But, within that 7 days, something that I didn't expect is when they knocked on my door, told me that I was going in later. I was in that hotel room for 21 days total
Wow.
without contact with my family. At one point, they definitely forgot about the women who were held back. And we kind of were just always told, like, it's going to be in the, next day, the next day, the next day. And so you don't have a key card to your own room. It's not like you're in a hotel
Right.
And you get to walk downstairs, you go get breakfast, you get to, do all these different things. There's filming that was going around us. So we were literally stuck in our box of a hotel room. There was no Netflix on the TV. It was just,
It's
satellite TV.
crazy.
That was a little bit fuzzy. Can't talk to your parents. Every time you pick up the hotel phone, it goes straight to production. It
Really?
was super lonely. Yeah, I was on the verge of an anxiety attack a few
Well, that's
times.
why they do that. You probably haven't seen a male in like 30 days. So you see him, it's like, you know what I
I
mean?
No, they don't. They technically don't do that anymore because of how hard it was on her mental health. Because nowhere in that contract are you saying like, yeah, I'm going to sit in a hotel room without permission to leave my hotel room, every
Yeah. Yeah. It's
day.
so
Like,
bizarre.
I would have not signed up for that. And I definitely debated going home and like sending myself home at that point because I
Right.
was like, look, I was told that I was going to go on day, on day one, and we haven't. But now, how many weeks into this thing are we at? I'm like, when are you going to send me in? Week 5, week 6?
Right.
Like, I
Right.
haven't spoken to my family, and there was just like too many things going on, and I was told that it wasn't intentionally meant to be like that, but then once you get in there, there's kind of a nasty environment because everyone thinks that you like showed up late, right? So the claws were definitely out. So that's what I didn't expect. Is I expected claws to be out. There's expected there to be drama. I did not expect to be held in a hotel room for 21 days without, the key to my own door. That's something I was like, not in the cards for me.
It's crazy. And again, I wonder how much that had to do with production and how much that had to do, like you said, with COVID. But I would say once you had the 7 days or were tested,
For 7 days.
probably right. I would say after that, it was probably a more production thing. That's just,
Regardless if it was intentional or a mistake, it was still like,
yeah. Listen,
you don't do that.
no, I mean,
And we had that conversation and hashed that out. But yeah, it's like you can't do that.
no, you can't, forget about cast members, whatever. But okay, so like I said, so that was the obviously some crazy, not fun stuff. What is that like? I mean, I mean, is it? I don't want to say it's a plan. I don't want to say that because we don't want you to get. But is it like again? Do they create certain? I don't want to say. Again,
I
characters is the
understand what
wrong
you're
word.
saying.
Yeah, do they
Like
create certain? Do
romance.
they create certain dramas? Is that what I'm saying? That's what I want to say. Does somebody like be the villain? Is somebody like the good girl? Somebody because you're from Minnesota, right? So,
Yeah.
right away I'm like, oh, Minnesota. Again, if I'm thinking as a director or producer, Minnesota girl, super sweet. Everything's it's a lot different than somebody being from New York and attitudey. But was that kind of predetermined, or was it just things flew the way they did?
I think that when they do casting and things like that and you show your personality, I think that there definitely are times where you get labeled. Like I got labeled before I went in, I got labeled as the quiet girl. That's why they didn't send me in the first time because they're like, oh, she's going to get overshadowed. And I'm like,
Right.
I can hold my own when I'm in a group of people. Like, believe me, I know that I'm
Right.
a little more quiet and I don't, spill all my details and everything to someone right when I meet them. But
Right.
doesn't mean that I'm, not capable of being vulnerable. And so they always really liked me, but they were like, she might be too quiet or she might get overshadowed. So as far as like getting labeled, 100%. As far as, pushing it to the extent, I think I always say it's kind of hard to tell at times. But at the end of the day, you have the say of whether you get to do something or choose to do something. So even if someone comes to you, like you can use, your brain and think like, oh, they're asking me, or maybe strongly suggesting that I go have this type of conversation with somebody, or I go say this, or I go interject
Right.
here. And I can say yes or no. And
Right.
they might just say, oh yeah, why don't you go do that? And you can use your mind. So at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, it is that person physically choosing to go do those actions.
Mm.
So there was like a strong power of suggestion. And that's where I kind of like struggle with that piece. It's because a lot of times you are in it and you don't have the whole full story of what's going on. and you don't know what other people are having in other conversations. And so like if you do get sent into something and you get sent into an awkward conversation, you didn't know what was happening. Did producers know what was happening in the conversation? Yeah, there's cameras everywhere and everyone has mics in. So it's like you kind of more just get put in different situations, but
Right.
as far as like how you handle it, nobody can make you say something or make you do something.
Right. Right.
So
No, of course. Right.
final say. So the people who come off very like villain like at times because they specifically said something that was really nasty, it's like you probably said that.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, that's interesting. So
That doesn't mean people
not,
don't get the idea about you. I will say
no,
that.
right, of course. So when you meet him for the first time, right, is it awkward? Is it, again, do you meet him obviously prior before, on camera, or is the first time you meet actually on everything's on camera for the first time?
Everything is on camera literally for the first time.
So
And
there's zero,
like I said,
obviously,
we were
zero
held in our
chemistry.
room specifically so we didn't run into this man. So
So
yeah, they make sure
there's
that,
no
that
chemistry. There's no chemistry. There's nothing because the first time you meet him.
there's nothing like you don't meet them anytime before. But the first time I meet him, I feel like, I don't know, I'm a very like energy person. I feel
Mhm.
kind of like vibe off of people. And so it wasn't awkward by any means.
Mhm.
Maybe it was overwhelming with, right, we have more women here to meet you. But
Right.
as far as like awkward, no, it wasn't. It's not really awkward. It's just kind of all an awkward situation, more
Right.
so, where there's a lot of people watching you have every conversation, watching you show affection, and the cameras are all right there. So if anything's awkward, it's just like the entire circumstance, and you almost like tend to find comfort in the other people who are there who are going through the awkward experience with you, if that makes
Right.
sense.
So again, was there any intimacy with you in him on camera?
Like kissing.
Yeah, like anything.
I mean, you can you kiss a lot of people, I guess, when you're the lead.
No, absolutely. Because the reason why I'm asking is that's where it went.
Yeah.
Was there anybody on the
Like
show
the
that?
first time I met him, like the
No,
first
no,
like
just in
show
general. No,
in general.
just in
Yeah,
general.
I mean, I made it to I was the
No,
runner
I
up.
know that. Leave it. Shh. I know we got to get to that, but the thing is, and I'm sure people already know because Sage.
I'm pretty impressive though.
No, but I'm saying Sage, who's one of the producers that you just met, she was a big fan of the show and knew exactly. Oh my God, that's great! I can't, I'm glad awesome we have a show because she followed the whole play out of how it played out, so she was very familiar, obviously. Um, so obviously I know the outcome, but was there anybody on the show that actually went that took the intimacy to another level with him?
Oh, I mean, I think a lot of people that was what was awkward for me is I think a lot of women definitely, especially on like group dates, things like that, would just go after it. Like they would just go
That's
for it. And
fucking
that's
great.
where I'm like, this is like, let's be mindful, right? Like we all know that we're dating the same person and it's technically an open relationship, but we're also human. So it's a little weird
Yeah,
sometimes. You like physically see that person that you're dating like kiss or be affectionate with somebody else. And so yeah, I mean, like there's times where like you walk around quarters and like people are, making out or doing whatever. But
oh, so at that point he wasn't overwhelmed anymore when he's on a triple date and maybe having a threesome. That's okay, but he
no,
can't see everybody at once.
yeah, I mean, no, I think he handled it. He
No,
handled it well. He
I'm
was
playing.
fine.
I'm
He was
totally
fine.
playing.
Did it, whatever. But like, no, I think the overwhelming piece.
I'm playing. I'm being stupid. But so obviously, what happens is obviously we go through the whole show. Now, little Miss Michelle from Minnesota, who everybody
Mhm.
was afraid of being too quiet and too meek, goes all the way to the final two. So now, what is that like? Now you got to be getting treated a little differently, not only with well, obviously the thing airs afterwards, so you already know the so it's not live. So, but do the producers, the PAs, everybody at that point now start to treat you differently, and or everything's kind of still the same? And now, what is it like? Okay, besides that, we're gonna get to that when the show airs. Right now, you're again, Michelle, fifth grade teacher from Minnesota. Now you're on The Bachelor, and now you've been on a while, right? Because every episode, so you're pretty much on the whole season because you go all the way to the end.
Yeah.
How does your life change? Right. How does your life change? Because now it's not you like Michelle from Manhattan, where everybody is doing different things. It's got to be a bigger thing for you. It's got to be life changing. Do you go back to teach? And what is the process when you're in the final? So I'm giving you a 3-part question. I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
So how does your life change, first of all?
Yeah, I think that while it was airing, it didn't really change too much, especially like those first few weeks, because I wasn't on the show. Like
Right.
I wasn't physically. I mean, I was there,
Right, but you weren't. Right.
but I
On
wasn't,
camera.
sent in yet. And so those first
You
few
were
weeks,
you were in prison at that point. You were still in prison.
I was watching Impractical Jokers in my hotel room, just like reruns. Those were
good.
my friends.
Those are my dudes. Those are good guys. Staten Island, that's where I grew up. I'm friends with those guys. They're from
Really?
Staten Island. That's where I grew up. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
well, they single-handedly kept me sane during that experience. Please tell them that, because
I will absolutely do that.
that was the only channel that I watched, and they were the only thing that like got a brief smile or laugh out of me as I was sitting in that hotel room alone.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I would say that while it was airing, it was really protected for me at the school I was working at, because I was still teaching, and my principal was really great about making sure that it was a professional environment, right? Because when you're at school and you're in a normal relationship, like you have a lot of choice of like when you can like talk about your relationship, when you know what I mean, don't have to speak about it. But when you're on a show like this, people are very invested or excited, or just the questions come out. And so they'll ask you just questions about your relationship right then and there, even if it's like in a professional setting. Right. So he really protected that. So when I was at school teaching, even when the show was airing, life hadn't changed. It was very normal. And I loved it, because that was like that peace that was just allowed me to be calm, tone down the anxiety, that whole thing. And then once I started to get to the end of, the final 3, the final 2, all of that, I think that's when more so like around town in Minnesota, and just people were starting to be a little bit more aware, and life started to change a little bit just when I would, leave the house and that kind of thing. So
what was your moment that was like, holy shit? What was the big wow? Like, oh man, shit changed. What was that moment for you?
Probably while I was on The Bachelor.
No, in Minnesota.
Just in general?
No. When you got out and the show was airing, what was the big, arc that people started, said, "Oh my God, it's Michelle"? What was that?
I think it was when I was just out with friends, and we were at just like a local bar here in Minnesota, and there were like a few bachelorette parties that were around us, and those 2 bachelorette parties ended up like coming like screaming and running.
Oh, that's
and
funny.
I couldn't really like figure out what they were screaming and running about. So I do remember like looking like behind me, or like not really sure like what's all the hype, everything. But then when they came up to me, that's when it like registered. I was like, oh, okay. So people really do like watch the show like that.
Right.
I watched with my mom growing up, but like I never, I wasn't like a diehard. Like I think it would be like, oh, that's really cool if I met one of the leads, something like that. Like, oh, I recognize them from that. But I didn't realize the strength of the fan base of Bachelor Nation until like those moments started happening.
Right. That's cool. No, that's awesome. So you get down to the final 2, right? Final 2. What is that like on production, on the show? And When the final ultimate decision was made, how does Michelle feel afterwards? Now, obviously you don't know, right? You have no idea who's going to pick.
Right. When you get down. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think some people have like an idea of certain things, but I will say that I didn't see that coming. I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to get picked. But I would say when it came to like production wise,
Mhm.
one experience that was so different for me is like typically when you go on the show, you have like your set producer because you have to talk to them about all your emotions. Like you're crying in front of them, you're really opening up in front of them.
Right.
You want to have a good relationship where like they're asking you different questions. Once you get to like, or as you're going throughout the process, I should say, you usually stay with that same person.
Mhm.
I know that they counted me as an underdog because I just got whoever. Like I didn't have a set producer. So like my person who was interviewing me, like first it was this person, then it was that person, then
Right.
it was this person, and then now they're like, now you're gonna report to this person. Whereas everybody else, you just see them like their producer checks in with them, and I didn't really have a consistent person like that. I got bopped around a lot, so I kind of
Right.
had to figure it out for myself, which that could have worked in my favor as well.
Mhm.
And the fact that I just kind of went in knowing that I couldn't really ever like fully trust anybody else besides myself, I guess.
Right.
Uh, I definitely was counted as the underdog, and I knew like that was fine. You can count me as an underdog all day. Like that's fine. I
Yeah.
will like
No.
I know
Yeah.
what I
There's
bring
no
to the table,
pressure.
and I was confident in that. But got down to the final two, it just becomes a little more intense. They meet family.
Right.
That was what I really look forward to is like my family coming there and being able to see them. But as far as like how things change, once I got to a certain point, I did have one consistent producer,
Mhm.
and that was really nice. I was like, wow, this is what it's like. This is like phenomenal because you build a relationship with them. And then you can
Right.
actually, when you're in those sessions where you're
Mhm.
talking to the camera and they're interviewing you, that's also
Mhm.
time for you to like reflect and think about your feelings. It's kind of like going to a
Right.
therapist a little bit.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
but it was really nice because I was able to work a lot of things out in my own mind during those times once I had that consistent person. But I
Right.
did not have that earlier on, which a lot of other people were
Well,
able to.
and again, you probably nailed it on the head per se. It was probably had no. They said this chick's not. This
Like
chick is
this
not.
girl's going home night one.
This chick will be all right. She's going to get out of the hotel room after a quarantine of 30 days, and she'll be gone in
Right,
one
right.
episode.
Which I'm a bubbly person. I'm very energetic, like when you meet me in person. But if I don't like trust you right off the bat and you come and ask me like a deep personal question, you're probably gonna get kind of a short answer. I don't know.
Right.
I just was like, I wasn't there yet. So, and
Right.
it just, yeah, they're collecting a paycheck. So I do have producers that I absolutely love now, and I'm super close and on a friend
No,
level
it's
with
all
them.
no, listen, it's all about
Yeah,
that.
that was hard that first year. It was really hard.
No doubt. And again, especially being new and this and that, going from not being in this world to getting thrust into it accidentally. So we don't even know to this day who fucking put you there. So then it could come down to you or the other girl. Now, again, without giving the whole again, because I don't know if it's confidentiality, all these different things.
Mhm.
What was the level? One being not at all, 100 being devastated when he picked the other girl at that time. What was your level of like disappointment?
I was, I was like, I was heartbroken. Like I like
Really?
those tears. Well,
Really? For real?
I will when how I operate, I go in and I go in at a like 100, it sounds cheesy, 110%. I went in, I did the work, I was vulnerable, I put myself out there, I understood the circumstance, but I also really got to know like that person. So
Mhm.
I wasn't one of those people who were just on it and like spewing different things, right, to try to like get to the end because I wanted to win the competition. I understood what was at stake. I come from a family where my parents were married for 35
Yeah, again,
years.
yeah, I guess
So
so.
you know
I
what I
guess
mean?
yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I was like,
you come from a
I was
wholesome
there for the
different
right
right.
reason. Yeah. So I went on there. And if I wasn't in it, I would have sent my ass home. So when I found out, like I went through a breakup. And the hardest part about that is that I went through again when I got sent home or when I was broken up with, I had to stay there for 7 days.
Oh, back in
7
the
days.
hotel
Like,
room?
I didn't just get to go home, even though I was like, why can't I just go home? Like, the show's over. Obviously, like the other person. I wasn't sure. I was just also like confused, but I didn't get to talk to my family for that whole 7 days.
Well, let me ask you a question, Michelle. At the end, at some point in time, does he have the ability to say, "Listen, Michelle, it was really tough, and I really is there any interaction with him saying why he picked the other girl, or it's just like peace
No,
out,
there's no
peace
closure.
out,
Like, there was literally like no
peace
closure
out?
at all. And it was like went from like a really like energetic like date to cut everything off. So it was just definitely like came off like we're on two separate pages. It was very confusing and the conversation was very short. So it did leave me like, what the hell did I miss? Or like, what's going on? Sorry, I don't know if I can start. What did I miss?
No, this is free
What did I
courtesy.
miss?
I'll throw an F bomb here.
What did I miss? And so yeah, I think that's like the hardest part. And then the only person that's left there to work through it with you is a producer. And it's like, I want to go home. I want to be with my family after all this. Like, just
Right.
be home.
So okay. So wow. So you genuinely were in love and you were ready to live the rest of your life with this dude. I mean, I don't want to call. What's his first name? I don't want to call him dude. That's not nice.
Matt,
What was
yep, Matt. Yep, Matt.
Matt? So again, is Matt still with that girl?
They are. They are.
Okay, so good. All right, so that makes
Yeah.
me feel good. That doesn't because
Exactly.
usually
They went
sometimes these.
through a lot. They broke up initially, so he didn't end up with anybody. And just from some things that were going on, and then they got back together, and like they are a fit. Like they are a right
No,
fit.
so good. So
So
listen.
it makes sense. Yeah, when you watch it back too, you're like, okay, that makes sense.
Okay,
So
no, listen. That's
that's kind of
great. Listen, I just laugh at somebody's show again. I don't know. I'm not from this world, so but it's like a 90-day fiance, all these different things. I'm like, really? And then you see after the time, a lot of they
yeah,
break up and stuff, after the show, and
yeah,
But I'm glad to hear that because that
yeah.
legitimizes the show.
But okay. And it's not always that legit. That was just my,
No, no,
that
yeah,
was my
absolutely.
perspective with everything. But what is kind of funny is that by the time you get to the end of it,
Mhm.
even when I was a lead, but by the time you get to the end of it, the person, even if you choose a person, whoever that is, you on average spend very little time with them. You
Of
probably
course,
spend maybe
of
like
course. Okay.
maybe a little over like I can't even say 48 hours of like with
Right,
them. It's
right,
crazy. So like we
right.
last
So,
90 Day Fiance. I'm like, that's 90 days. Like if I could spend 90 days directly one-on-one with my person, you get to know them real well.
yeah, of
This is
course.
like 48
I
hours
mean,
fiance.
it's like if me spending a weekend with you.
Yeah.
And then say, all right, we're going to spend the rest of our lives together. I mean, we're not
But
even we're not even not brushing our teeth in front of each other yet. We're still making before we kiss. We're
you
still
do
making sure
jump
we have
in though.
preference.
You do jump in though, and that's one thing that I will say about that because I did go in skeptical, like, does this actually work? I'm not gonna force myself to feel things. You do go in, you don't have any distractions, you don't have your phone, you don't have social media
Right,
distracting you, and then you're with people who are kind of like challenging you or pushing you outside your comfort zone to talk about your feelings. I was a college athlete. I didn't talk about my feelings. I didn't talk about, I didn't like to cry. I didn't like to, open up to anybody. I learned a lot about opening up and how quickly you can get close to somebody when you just kind of like cut the BS. We're not over there asking like, what's your favorite color?
right. No,
We're
I got
jumping
you.
right
No,
in
it
of like,
makes
what do you want? What do you actually value? And I think that you can learn a lot about somebody very quickly,
mhm.
uh, where there's the possibility of connecting with somebody.
No, that makes sense. No, that makes sense. Yeah. All right. So again, I don't want to harp, because there's so many questions I could just harp on that part of it. But again, obviously, I'm not because again, we got to where it makes sense, and I just wanted to make sure. I want to say the legitimacy, just how far they make you feel and how the feelings go, and obviously I know that. So, we go to season 18 of the Bachelorette now. So again, I'm not sure if they're on the same level. I don't know if one show has more of a following. No, I don't know. So I'm gonna assume they're equal. Okay, so let's just say for argument's sake, because somebody like myself, I don't know. So what is the difference? Now, again, obviously, now you're the spectacle. It's you.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get picked for as the Bachelorette? And now what's the biggest flip for you as now the main focus?
I think by the time I got finished, by the time I wrapped up the season and like people, like the public knew that I wasn't chosen, they had already, like there were already rumblings. A lot of times they already like announced the next lead.
Right.
And that's very normal. But there were two of us. There were me and Katie Thurston. And I think they were like very much going back and forth. Like we were in interviews. I was told that it was the other person, and we were all doing this right at like after the final rose on the Bachelor season of like, who's going to be announced. And there was that was very heavy because there was a lot of racial controversy that was going around. And so I think there was a lot of stuff going on. So you can research that one.
No, I absolutely will. I didn't. I think at this,
it was really heavy.
That's
it was
crazy.
really heavy. And so, so me as a Black woman standing up there, you kind of like automatically become the spokesperson in this very like white world, I will put it. And so I was counted out for the Bachelorette quite a bit, I think, in eyes of the fans, and I know on eyes on the other side. And after a few other conversations, think the executives and the people really started to see like the personality, and they had been with me long enough now through like all these interviews, working on The Bachelor, all that stuff, that they really did put up a fight and push for me to be Bachelorette and to have 2 seasons because they felt that I deserved it. So
Let's get the chick from Minnesota. Let's get the Minnesota chick. Let's go with the chick from Minnesota, the quiet one.
It was so much more behind that, though. I would say it really did push stem from like the racial situations.
So were you the first? Then again, I gotta. I mean, I can figure this out without even asking. So you were the first African American Bachelorette?
No, I was not. I was nope.
Why were they still doing that?
What's that?
I said, so why were they still going there if you weren't even the first? I mean,
they weren't going there. I'm saying that when I was at that after the final rose,
right?
Normally after the final rose is like there's like a happy ending. The couple ends up together.
Right.
So it was me and Rachel, but instead of like who ends up with the Bachelor is Matt, how's that relationship going? It was all about racial situations, controversies online. And so you have somebody who's white and you have somebody who's Black, and now it's like, who's the Bachelor going to pick? And so there's with it with the final people. And so it was really intense and exhausting. And I found out that they selected me as the Bachelorette like 2 hours before walking on stage. So it was heavy. It was exciting, but at the same time, like I sat on that couch and Emmanuel Acho was there talking through all, like I said, all the racial problems. So it was really like, I wanted to be excited about it, but I think I was just like exhausted from speaking. It was really heavy.
That does sound heavy. It sounds heavy. So again, so you get all through that. I mean, that gets behind you now. So you're the bad now. Michelle, I still have to call everybody when I know them. I still cut their names. Michelle is the Bachelorette. So what is like, obviously, like I said, other than being now it's you and you're in every episode, it's, it's who Michelle wants. Other than that obvious, switch, what would you say the biggest difference was? Well, there's a lot. You get to hang out with dirty dudes. You got to, obviously there's a lot, but what would you say the one biggest thing from when it was the other way, from being one of the girls to the girl?
Oh my God, you just have more you don't have a lot of control, but you just have more control. Right, where like
Right.
when you were
Well,
contestant, you didn't have control of like you had sometimes like 2-minute conversations at a time, and you didn't have control of like when you could like speak to them again. Whereas like when you were a lead, you just had a little bit more control over the time at times, and so you kind of felt like you were in the driver's seat a little bit
right.
more than a contestant. Are you really in the driver's seat? Like, yeah, yes and no. But
Right.
yeah, it was nice being able to like, okay, this is supposed to turn out for me.
Right.
And it
And
wasn't like,
also, it's all about Michelle. You know what I mean? All the producers are pampering you, and now you're the girl. Well,
it's
I
not
mean,
always like, it
no,
looks
I
super
got you. But now you're
stylish.
the girl who is, if you're quote unquote overwhelmed, some other dude's gonna hang out in his hotel room until you're ready to meet him. You know what I mean? So I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of perks and coups. Is what I was
Yeah.
telling you.
They don't prepare, like, there's nothing that someone can prepare you to be the lead because you also run off of 2 hours of sleep. And when you enter it and when you enter it with the right mindset, you want to be present for
Mhm.
all of these people that sit in front of you. So it's like a lot of emotional energy. You're also trying to, pick out who's a good person, who maybe isn't your person. And
Right.
so there's a lot of emotions going on. You don't talk to your family. It's not this like beautiful, lavish, I guess, experience. And we were still in a bubble. I think when you're like traveling and jetting off to different places,
Right.
get to see the world a little bit more, I think that there are also other opportunities where it might feel a little more like you're pampered.
Mhm.
But like in a COVID situation in the bubble, they treated me like I was treated very well. Like you said, if you're hungry, if you want something to drink, they make sure that you're comfortable. But at the same time, you are like, you're putting on, it's show. Like you're the lead of the show. It banks on
Right.
you. And that means that I'm the one getting up at 4:30
Yeah,
a.m.
no, you're carrying the season. I mean, it's yeah,
off of 2 hours of sleep. I think that first night we went to bed, they said it was the latest first night, like of Bachelor or Bachelorette. We went to bed at like 12:30 p.m. the next day. And then I had to get up like 2 hours later and continue to film. So yeah, it's a lot, especially for the girls. You got to go through hair, you got to go through makeup. Like the guys get up, they throw an outfit on, and they're good to go. Girls, you got to go through so much.
absolutely no, yeah. So you go through the whole thing, right? You get down to the final two. So how close were you, or how like conflicted were you between the final two, or did you already know like the perfect
Yeah.
fit?
I thought I was going to know because I kind of like entered like, how could you actually like care about two different people to that same level?
Right.
But I guess if you say, I'm not even say like do the show right, but if you really like take what they say of compartmentalize a relationship so
Mm-hmm.
that you can fully like sometimes a 2-minute conversation can change anything. So like I kept my head in it for a very long time up until the
Mm-hmm.
end, compartmentalizing. And then
Mm-hmm.
at this point you have to switch from compartmentalizing to like comparing. And that's
Right.
what's really hard is because it's like they're two very different people. I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy that neither of them worked out. But you know, when you say that,
Right.
I'm very happy now. But yeah, I think it's just this really abnormal feeling because you're like, whoa, I never thought I'd be the person that would like come up to the end and just be like, oh wow,
Yeah,
like
because now they're you,
yeah,
in a
you
sense.
know, like shoot, yeah. So I would have probably never let somebody get all the way to the end if I'm like, I really know it's not you. Like I would have
Right.
never dragged someone on for weeks and weeks and weeks. But
Right.
in my situation, yeah, I really compartmentalized well, probably maybe too well. And then you got to make a hard decision. But like I said, very happy that it worked out the way it did.
Yeah, no, like I said, so everything happens for a reason. So
Right.
if you, again, did you, I'm going to know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask this and then we'll move on. And then, yeah, I appreciate all the candidness.
Yeah.
Which experience was better, being the Bachelorette or being the on the other side?
100% being the lead, because
Of course, I do. I
you're
said
not
that.
left in a hotel room like that. I'm like, I don't even know what to call it, salty. But I still get a little bit of anxiety when I go into a hotel room now, because it's just like you were left beforehand, you're left out, afterwards. And yeah, I think as a bachelorette, I enjoyed my time. I got to spend so much time with just
Of
the
course, hang out with
different
dude. I mean,
producers that are
again,
there for you. Like at the end of the day, they want you to be happy, or you'd hope that they
of
want you to be
course,
happy. They want it
yeah,
to work
yeah,
So I think that I really did end up becoming close to quite a few people there. And it's kind of like you're trying to find your person, but then you're like hanging out with your friends at the same time. And it did feel like that there people there like supporting.
So, and that's awesome. So, again, well, I'll ask one last question with this, and then, so now obviously you go home.
Mhm.
Whatever's happened. You picked who you picked. The season comes out. Now because you now it was all about you. Um, what happened? What is the level of your life changing with that now? Does it, obviously now the whole, I don't know how many episodes they break it into 12, 8, whatever it is. Now with whatever amount of episodes, it's all about Michelle. So
Mhm.
how does that explode and make change your life, or um, what was the biggest change, or what was the biggest moment?
I would say that it's pretty difficult sometimes as a lead to like watch yourself back on camera,
Oh yeah,
because
clearly.
so
Right,
like you're dealing with that. I don't know if I would want to say like you become more like self-conscious, but it's awkward seeing like people say certain things about you, and then you deal with like the social media side part of it. So it's like a lot of people step into it like, yeah, it's all about me. I'm a
right.
person where I'm like, I can handle the spotlight, but I don't like need the spotlight to thrive. So
Hmm.
I don't need, it's not fulfilling to me, but I'll handle it. And so it was just very weird, I think, for me on the flip side to experience all of that, like people talking about you so judgmental, or you see some of the contestants that were there that you're like, I didn't know that they spoke like that about me. And so it was like processing all of those things, but also
Right,
knowing the ending at the same time, and then having your dad watch you kiss people. Like I
right,
think I was experiencing more like that's how my life changed. It was like my family was now seeing this vulnerable
right.
side of me, when typically, like I said before, I didn't really open up much. So I think that's where it changed.
Gotcha. I gotcha. It all makes sense. So, um, I see right now. So you're not, obviously not. I would go out on a limb and say you're not teaching anymore, right? If you're not teaching fifth grade.
Correct. So I finished after I was the bachelorette. I finished that school year,
Mhm.
and then I was burnt out. I had to step out. I was so burnt out from teaching. I'd been burnt out the year prior, but this probably expedited it a little bit with
Right.
everything that you deal with. But I
Mhm.
was emotionally exhausted.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So, I know now. I know you started the foundation, right? The
Yep.
Fem Foundation. What are you doing now, and what's coming up for you, and uh, what does life look like now, post bachelorette?
Life is very different, but I think I kind of got to the spot that I thought I was going to get to, in the sense of I always wanted to have my own foundation. I just
Hmm.
got there with the
A
route that I
different one,
didn't think. I thought it was going to be something that I start when I'm maybe like in my 60s, or I'm like
right?
retired, and so I didn't think that I'd be starting it now, but I've kind of taken social media by the reins a little bit and looked at it of what do I want out of this,
Right.
because I don't really want to just take all the mental health issues and anxiety that you get from social media.
Mhm.
How can I do something with this that's going to make me feel good or others feel good? And that was with utilizing it to kind of like leverage and create awareness for the foundation. So we have a bunch of after school programs. We are giving students of underserved communities tutoring, free tutoring with literacy, with math, a lot of the things that kind of stemmed from COVID that pushed
Mhm.
them further back behind, giving students an opportunity to play sports, the accessibility of it. So that's kind of where life is right now, is really focusing on fundraising money. We're doing a fundraiser right now, giving back, kind of finding like-minded people in the space that I'm in, which has been difficult, I will say, or just a learning experience. And so it's rewarding, but it's hard work to get people to like care about giving back
No,
or
no doubt.
outside themselves.
No, I mean, it's amazing. So, how do people that are listening find you if they want to become a part of the charity, the foundation, just follow you in general after they hear the show, or fans that were fans of the show? What are your handles? And if you could just share that with us, that would be amazing.
Yeah. You can find me at the MY Foundation on Instagram, or just Michelle Young. You'll be able to kind of toggle back and forth and find me on either page there. But really kind of my focus right now is the MY Foundation. And so pushing people towards that. Like I said, social media can be so anxiety provoking, so tough on mental health. There's so much negativity with it. And so we're doing a lot of positive stuff over there. So taking a look at that, so many different fundraisers. You can kind of see the students that we're supporting right now. It's been really, really awesome. And as much as either sharing that page, sharing the fundraisers, kind of jumping on that bandwagon and, stepping outside the toxic reality TV world a little bit, it's been really nice.
Awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, I had a lot of questions. And I got a lot of answers. And you debunked a couple of things for me, which I love. I appreciate you coming on right before the holiday. You were amazing. And again, listen, anything we could do with you call it MY, not my, it's MY Foundation?
Michelle Young Foundation.
Okay. All right. Okay. So anything, keep us abreast with the MY Foundation. We'll push it out, and again, have a happy, healthy, food-filled holiday. And once again, Michelle Young, I'd like to thank you. For everybody listening out there, Michelle is a perfect example. If you dream out loud. Don't talk shit, create shit. Once again, my name is Steve Stanulis. This is Screw the Clout. I want to thank Sage Spielman, our producer, our sponsors, Believe, and we will see you soon. Next week, look for this episode. Have a great holiday. Be safe, be sound, and we'll see you next week on Screw the Clout.